Welcome to the Decide Your Legacy podcast, helping individuals and businesses unleash their potential. Join us every episode as host Adam Gregg discusses what is holding us back and how to find hope for moving forward. Along the way, we discuss developing healthy relationships and navigating life transitions while overcoming fear, stress, and anxiety. Live the life you want, the legacy you decide.
So in this episode, I had my friend Brent Coppock, licensed professional counselor, on the episode, and it was such a great conversation about relationship building actions that I decided to split it up into 2 episodes. I think you're going to find this tremendously helpful and inspiring. Enjoy. So it's amazing the things that we remember. I can think of a time not too long ago when I was with a group of people. One of them's name was Emerson. One of them's name was Dave. And we were getting ready to go on a hike. And some people in the group wanted to go on the hike. Some people didn't want to go on the hike. But eventually we went on the hike and we made it to the very top. And it was a great experience. But I think back on that and think, well, we could have given in to attitudes that didn't want to go on the hike and we would have never had this experience. And now we look back and we say, this is really great and positive. We have pictures, things. That's what happens with relationships. You don't know. There are certain actions you can take that build relationships, certain actions you don't take that aren't going to help, certain actions you can take that can hurt relationships. And we're going to talk about that today. So this is episode 126 of the Decide Your Legacy podcast. This is called Relationship Building Actions. And I'm your host, Adam Gregg. I'm a coach, family therapist, speaker, mental health professional for over 25 years. I help people find clarity, the clarity needed to face their biggest fears and to live their legacy. I talk about stuff I struggle with myself. I don't have it all figured out. I'm a fellow traveler. I have a special guest today. His name is Brent Coppock, and he's been a friend of mine for, I think, close to probably 25 years, a long time. He is a licensed professional counselor who I believe has extraordinarily unique abilities to help teams and families and people. And I want to give him a chance to introduce himself. So tell us about yourself, your family, all this stuff that you think would be a good intro here.
Yeah. So Millie and I have been married for over 24 years. I love her more today than the day we were married. And as we'll get into it, it takes work to be able to say that, hard work. And we have 5 kids. We're adoptive family. So we have 3 biological sons. And then our daughters have been with us for a little over 10 years now.
And how old's your oldest?
He is 23.
Okay. And how old's your youngest?
She is 13 going on 23.
She is something else.
Yeah.
She's pretty fun. You have a big mixture of personalities there as well.
Broad spectrum.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. It's pretty easy to pinpoint who talks the most.
Yes. Yeah. There's one extroverted in our family.
There's just one. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then what about your career and things that have happened recently for you?
Yeah. So, you've walked with me through a lot of this and was a sounding board for as I was trying to decide what to do. I just graduated in December with my master's in counseling from the Townsend Institute. It was a little over, 10, 12-year process by the time I went all the way through school and then master's. And then I retired from my job of 35 years at the end of May. And so now I just have one job.
That's crazy.
And
35 years.
35.
Okay. So, wow. And it was a 12-year process to get
it was about, 10, 12
Wow.
years.
How did you not give up when it's such a long process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of it was just truly believing that this is what I was supposed to do. I just saw through this, as I processed through it, every step of the way I would see it. But there was a lot of times where it did get discouraging and overwhelming. And I think just being able to rely on, friends like you, my wife. I mean, I couldn't have done it without her and her believing too that this is what we're supposed to do, because it was definitely a team effort.
And those are like polar opposite careers, like an engineer to a counselor.
Yeah.
Like, things to people, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you went and got your bachelor's degree in a field that related to counseling, and then also got your master's in the field. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. So, all right, I want to share something uncomfortable today that I did recently because I do that because nothing's more important, in my opinion, to mental health. Great mental health is than facing your fears, and nothing's more damaging than playing it safe. So, I did something that I've probably put off for a long time, and I ended up deciding to get off the panel of the last insurance company that I'm on the panel for starting in 2025. Clients that are listeners, whatever we got to do to make things happen, transition, I'm here for you. That's just what I'll tell you right now. So, but that was scary because it's burning the boat. It's like, I mean, that's not the primary source of like revenue and all, but it's still like this safety blanket. Right. And then I even asked them, I said, can I get back on someday if I want? And they said, yes, you can for sure. But anyway, I've burned the boat. That's still scary. It's a big step. And so that's it for me. Anything you've done, you'd say it's been kind of scary, Brent?
Well, this right here is way outside my comfort zone, being an introvert. I remember a talk you did, man, it's probably 10 years ago. I don't even know about Who's Your Monkey. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And so like I'm here with my monkey, Adam.
That's right, man.
So it's not as scary.
That's exactly right, man. I'm like thinking, this great. We've put this off for a long time because, we've talked about counseling stuff, helping people for a long time. I mean, that's just, so it's really fun. So anyway, we're going to like have you right now take an action because, I like you to start off uncomfortable as well. So what is a relationship that you want to make some progress in? Okay, with. So is it a team that you lead? Is it a family relationship? Is it a friendship? Something that you want to make some progress. And as we go through this podcast on relationship building actions, you're going to unpack that and think about that as well. So go ahead and write that down, speak it into your phone. I'm sure it just comes to mind for you. It's probably not very hard because, we all have some relationship, I would think, that we want to make some progress on. So for me, what I'm doing here is I'm thinking about, as I go through this, my relationship with my siblings. Okay. So I have a brother and a sister. And I think this content relates to both of them. And it's one of those areas where I have good relationships with them, but I'd like to have better, and we can work on it. So fear facing is a main core value of Decide Your Legacy. And I discussed that in the last couple episodes of the Decide Your Legacy podcast. Now, connection building is another core value of Decide Your Legacy. When you build connection with other people and take action to do that, and you start feeling a level of trust, you are going to have less stress. You're going to feel healthier. You are going to be energized because all that energy that was going towards the dynamics in those relationships is going to go towards creativity, which we're all designed to create to make the world better. But you're going to find healing in relationship because as those ones get healthier, you're going to realize that, I can trust people that I didn't think I could trust. And so you're going to be healed by having new information and data. I find that all my best ideas come from other people. I just borrow them and tweak them. Really, the people I talk to, the clients that I've experienced and been able to have, walk with, all the stuff. And it doesn't have to be perfect. My ideas are refined as I have the other people to help me refine them. Really amazing thing. So we have 3 essentials today that you want to keep in mind as you take healthy relationship action with the goal of building healthier relationships. So I'm going to go ahead and discuss what those essential things are, and then Brent's going to feed and fill and kind of fill in the ideas because I don't really have any ideas. But I come up with the concepts. He can actually make it actually work and stick. So he is really good at that. So the first essential is safety. And this is really interesting because about a decade or more ago, Brent and I, we were both, well, he was really interested in this stuff back then. And so I was working in the profession already, and I went to this training called PrEP with him. And we learned a whole bunch of cool things. That was in Oklahoma, right? Yeah.
Oklahoma City.
And it was about helping basically families, and you could bring it back. And it was a lay person's type training, so anyone could go through it. But one of the principles that they talked about was make it safe to connect. This isn't something that I necessarily got from that training. So make it safe to connect. That's about trust. And you think of ways that you can engage other people that make it feel safe. So I found this book helpful recently called The Culture Code by Dan Coyle. And there was a study referenced in this book about, and Stanford did this, which Stanford University does some cool studies, but there's other universities that do as well. But they study people's email exchanges to find any patterns of interaction that lead to good, healthy indication of good, healthy, strong relationships, and ones that lead to erosion of teams. This is all professional. And what they measured and they found was that the more they talk about sports and kids and family, and actually the more cuss words in the emails, the better the team functions. But what that shows you is that they're not cussing at each other, but they're showing an indication of trust between the parties. Comfort. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So say when you don't feel safe, you shut down. When you feel safe, you end up opening up. You let your guard down. Just yesterday, one of my other really super close friends was telling me about a situation that he experienced once at a workplace where things were always held over your head when you made a mistake, right? And a threatened that it could come back and get you, or even that like we might do something with this information or we might not. And I was telling him, I said, well, when you're in a situation at a company where they utilize your mistakes against you, you'll never win in that environment because they'll always find a reason to get rid of you, right? They'll always be able to find and twist something to say. My advice to some people in companies is to run, get out as soon as you possibly can, because this is a culture that is not going to change because of you. I mean, it's structural. And at the very top, there's this threat that we can do whatever the hell we want to you because we run the company, we employ you, and we'll twist it to make it fit our narrative, whatever it is. That is not safe. I mean, you will never find psychological safety in that kind of environment. So what do you believe, Brent, causes people to feel unsafe with others? Well, and why is it so important?
That was a great example. If you have to just check every single word you speak or thing you do, you're never going to feel comfortable. You're not going to be able to create. That's what you were talking about, being creative earlier. That's just squashing that,
Yep.
And
rock in a hard place.
Yeah. And I think that's an old school mentality because in one of my first jobs, I had a boss like that. The first thing in the morning, he would go around and just chew everyone out. And he thought that motivated him for the day, but everybody was just, shaking and scared. And, you can't produce when you feel that way.
Yep.
Whatever I do, if my goal is to do something well, even if I make a mistake, it's like you're understood, you're not judged. The hammer's not above your head all the time. That's what you need, is to feel that comfort.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just work. It's with relationships in general. If you don't feel comfortable of saying things, you're always having to check what you say. The way I would put it is what I was thinking about freedom. You don't have a peace, right? There's not a peace there.
You got to say the perfect thing.
Yes.
And so what do you pick up on as a therapist that indicates that there's maybe a safety problem?
So we all have wounds, right? I saw a quote recently. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, right? And so we're all wounded. We're walking around wounded. And so that keeps us trying to protect ourselves. And it's hard for us to trust anyone because we've been wounded. Most often, we're wounded in relationship. And so it keeps us from engaging in relationship because of that. We're protecting ourselves. It's hard to trust. So the way if someone is trusting is they're able to share things with you and not hold that back.
So how quickly can you pick up on how safe people feel around each other when they come in as a family? Or
it takes a bit of time because depending on the person, everything's wonderful. But then you'll get little glimpses of comments will slip out where, people think we're just such a great family. It's like, you kind of get that idea of we're trying to put on this look for everyone because everybody thinks everybody else has it together. So I have to have it together. It's not okay to admit that it's a mess.
So are you saying basically like when people start to admit that they have problems, then that's a sign that they're building some trust?
Yes. Yeah. When they can get to the point where they can share and not have to edit the story, that's when you're starting to build some trust. And I think personally, if you're talking with somebody and you're having to check everything you say, I'm just like, what is it? Is it something in me? Is it something in them? In trying to understand
that. It's amazing how that happens.
Right.
So what have you tried personally and let's say with your family to build safety?
Yeah. So the best example for me is because of my past wounds, and this was through my master's program digging, and that's what they really helped us dig into our junk. And so as I did that, my goal through my master's program was healing my attachment wounds. And so one of the simple things they had you do is start to recognize your emotions, your feelings, which is something, for because of those wounds, I was not able to do that. And so I was starting to work on that.
Through the program, you're starting to work on attachment wounds for the audience. Like, what does that mean?
So early in life, as a child, you're supposed to learn that if you need something, your needs are going to be met. Yeah, in my case, I had instances where that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more around of, me expressing an emotion, and then basically, it wasn't accepted.
So like the long and the short of it, like a baby crying and then not getting soothed.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you should always pick up your baby when they cry. I mean, there's times when they have to kind of fall asleep. I get it. So, but like in general, you don't get the bonding that would be healthy to know that your needs are going to be met.
Yes.
And it may not be all of your needs, but in some cases, and that can lead to an attachment wound. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then having to, be able to learn, because I stuffed those down for a long time. Really the only one I had was happy or angry. Those are, one of the few that I could.
Easy ones.
Yeah.
Hey.
Usually my response is, I'm good. So I learned I needed to try to understand those and then share those with somebody safe. My safe person is my wife. And she would always ask, how am I doing? Good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm always good. She knows better. She knows me better than I do a lot of times. And she would try to help coach me. When I finally got to the point where I understood I need to work on this, I started sharing. And so that's what she was longing for, was to actually hear my heart. That's really what is coming out, right? It's your right brain. Your experiences is where the wounds were. And as you said, that wounds happen in relationship and they can only be healed in relationship. And so by sharing this with my wife, she was able to connect with me on a really heart level. And what I did not expect was I actually needed that. And as I did that, she felt closer to me, but I also felt closer to her.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not something that I was expecting or even thought I needed.
Mm-hmm.
I felt closer to her. I felt like I couldn't get close enough to her. And it's not like a needy thing. It was just a longing, it was just something so new and so, as I said earlier, freeing, right? Mm-hmm. It was such a freeing experience because of these wounds, you're trying to protect yourself. So if you're trying to protect yourself, there's something between you and the other person. And when you can finally let that down, which is what happened with my wife, then you find out there's just so much more beauty than you ever realized.
Can you think of the very first time that happened with your wife? But there was a first, okay, someone took the first action there, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking it wasn't after you got married, right?
No, it's been in the last few years. So yeah.
Oh, the first time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
In my master's is when I intentionally started doing this.
Yeah.
And then, after being able to do that with her, then I can start doing it with other people.
Yeah.
You and some other close friends.
For sure.
I can trust and are safe.
Yeah.
Safe people.
Yeah.
But as you said, as we get to where we're healed or healing, I guess, I don't know where it'll be healed, we're healing. But as you heal, then you can do that with other people, even if they aren't safe. You may not get what you desire, and you just have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this person's not able to go there, and that's okay.
Yeah. Though that's a great point, because you have a foundation of safe people that help you to actually be able to be around unsafe people with boundaries in a healthy way. Is there any point in your marriage when you realized that your wife was safe? When would that be?
Oh, that would have been early on when we were dating. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to marry her if I didn't believe she was safe. She is a person, which this is big for me, trust issues. I have trust issues. And so everyone I meet, I'm always questioning, is this a safe person? And I have all kinds of doors and locks that people have to get through. And so with her, she's a person that if she thinks it comes out, there's no secrets. And so that for me was huge in my can I trust is, she is, because I know that she just,
Yeah. She would not stuff things. She
does
would get it
not,
out, and then you.
and she can't keep secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in a good way,
She can't keep. Well, some things you got to keep a secret.
If it's somebody else's secret, she can keep that. Yeah. So with her, I just knew that whatever's there is coming
It's gonna
out.
come out.
I could just trust her, and so that was really early on.
And then, how professionally, as a therapist, do you build and try to build safety?
Safe people are people that are not judging. Whatever you say it's safe. There's no judgment. I'm here to help you. I'm here for you.
And they're like, yeah, right, whatever. You want my money. You just want me to come back. Okay, I'm just kidding. But no, I think you have a way of doing that. I'm trying to, because something that I would think would be your attention to people would become across as genuine for you personally, Brent, that you really do care. I always thought when you do this, you'd have trouble maybe not letting go, realizing that they got to do their own stuff.
Right.
I can't do it for them.
Right.
And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, to say if they come back, they come back. If they don't, they don't. It's not personal. It's really a reflection of them.
Yeah. And especially starting out, it's hard not to think, oh man, if I was better,
Right.
Yeah. And so there is that. But again, I have healthy people that I can talk with and work through those feelings. A good example, I think, of that maybe is I have a friend who, and I'm sure, and so this would be trying to find somebody I can do this with. So a safe person. So if you have a person like this in your life, that's a pretty good indication. You might want to spend more time with them. I have a friend who you can't go anywhere without him seeing somebody he knows, and then they'll come up and talk, because he will talk to you like he's known you forever and you're the only one on the planet. I mean, when you're talking to him, he's just all in with you.
Yep.
And so people are just drawn to him. And so it can be a little frustrating when you're with him, because you can't go 5 feet without running into somebody else that he's talking to. But at the same time, it's like, wow, I'd like to be like that. A person that people just feel comfortable with and feel valued by. And so finding that person is a pretty good indication that they're a safe person.
You're lucky you got those people, so spend more time with them. And it's amazing you can work on it. You can take action within yourself to become a safer person.
Right.
And even what I'm hearing with you is to change the mindset that maybe they're not going to hurt me. Maybe they're going to, help me. I have a friend from church that has a pit bull. And we were talking a couple weeks ago. Huh?
I like pit bulls.
You like pit bulls? Okay, so we were talking. The pit bull's 12 or 13. It's an older. Anyway, it's just someone I know casually, but a good guy, and his wife and everything. But he was telling me when he walks the dog, people get scared, and he thinks it's so funny because it's the most friendly pit bull. He's just 2 kids. He's got 2 kids that are teenager, and one's in her early 20s or something, and it's the initial reaction is it's not safe, right? And I mean, thanks to people, and, I mean, whatever, dog fighting and things that but they're actually very friendly. But same thing with people. So how can I go into that interaction saying, you know what, something good's going to come out of this? I remember my dad saying that when I interviewed him. He said when he went into a sales meeting, and I totally believe this about my dad, his initial approach is it's going to go well. They're going to like me because look at me. And that's why he was so devastated when he met Bill Cosby, and Bill Cosby was a total jerk to him. He was like, I thought he would like me. But then it's well, that wasn't really personal, kind of thing. And then he's met all these famous people and are thinking, well, he did that because he was willing to say, well, they probably do want to meet me. Yeah. Really.
I mean,
it's kind of cool.
But it's both pieces, right?
Both
it's
pieces.
Having that attitude, but also, if that's not the response, that's not on me.
It's not on me. No, it's actually on them. They missed out because, I'm a uniquely gifted, cool person, not in an arrogant way. I have something to offer, which I find is so helpful, is when people realize that they don't have to be equal. Why do you want to be equal? I don't want to be like you, Brent. I mean, there's qualities that you have in you
equal, not the same, right? So we want to be on the same level, not one up, one down.
Yeah. I think when people describe equality, though, is like they think if we can look at each other as being the same, then we're going to feel safer. I thought about this. Like if somebody is, when we have people around us that all think the same way as us, then we feel safer. Yet I think it's great if we all think the same way about the right things that are true. If we think about certain things,
But how do we know what the right things are?
We know what the right things.
How do we know we're thinking correctly if we don't have somebody to question it? Right?
We don't, because then and so that, in that sense, I would rather have healthy people who are not the same, and equal. I don't know. I guess I've thought about how there's a lot of negativity with that word these days, but I think it's misused in so many ways. And so I think people are healthier when they realize we're just unique. We're just different. And that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have what you have. You're not going to have what I have, but we can help each other out. And that's a cool thing. So what can people start doing today? And you've kind of hit on this, but to start building a sense of improving their ability to have safety around them. What can they start doing right now?
Yeah, we talked about, I think, finding a safe person, and just noticing who those people are in your life that you can be around and just be who you are. It's rare to find this person. And then, as you also said, being that person is another piece of it. And that kind of takes some work to be able to get to the point like your dad is. That's hard, and so it's kind of both. You got to work on being around safe people so that you can be that person. And then as you heal, then you can start doing that with other people too.
And you hit on this too, like that. If you find a person that is safer, so text them right now, do something right now with that, and reach out. If you even reaching out with an idea with somebody, and somebody recently reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think you should apply to speak at this event." And I thought, well, they shouldn't have to do that. And I was actually feeling really insecure at that time about my speaking abilities, which I do a lot, because especially when I have something I'm preparing, I feel like I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
It's a fear, right?
It's a fear. Yeah. But then she had sent that out and it was like, well, maybe I'm better than I thought, because at least she's inviting me.
Yeah.
And I respect her opinion more than my opinion of myself a lot of times. So let's go to the next one. So go first. Essential number 2 is to go first.
Yeah.
Essential number 2 in relationship building action. So, and you're the one who's willing to invite. You're the one who's willing to text. You're the one who's willing to engage. And I think at college and high school friends, a lot of times I'll go and say, well, we're probably not going to get together unless I plan something.
Yeah.
But does that really matter? I could be and have the mindset, which I have, like, I don't want to do this again. I mean, why won't they do it? Or I can have the mindset, like, who cares? Like I want to make enough money that I can actually get the grouchy people to all get together and pay for their way and to make it work and invite them. And so they don't have an excuse not to do something. So then that's really cool and fun and exciting. And I want to be a safe person for them. It's not about me. Like if I go first, I'm not making it about me. And I don't have to judge them. I'm just that's where they're at. That's an example of not being equal in a sense. Like, I don't want to have that negative attitude about going first. I don't want to be equal to that. I don't want that. That's what I mean by that. Like, I don't want that, but I'm not judging them for it, because the reality is if you have an attachment wound, there's a very good chance that they did what best they could do back then. But they were so, I think of my attachment wounds. I think my mom is a great person. I think, but there's also different parts of me that aren't great and different parts of her that need work and everything. So we're all mixed kind of bag, so I think it's really healthy. It's that you learn about false dichotomies. It's you can either say it's an either or it's a both and. I like a both and. Yeah. And then that's why
more accurate.
It's more accurate for sure. Both and. But I'll never be in fact, and some people may never be as extroverted as me, and that's okay. I don't want them to be. Right. So do your part. And one of the first things I like to do with teams is an icebreaker, because I want to get them uncomfortable, but I think next week I'm doing this thing with this company and I got a workshop planned, and I know it's a mixture of people, some that'll want to be there, some that won't. I think most of them will want to, because I've done it before with the same team and it went really stinking well. But there'll be some people that are new.
Right.
And so as people that are new come in, they're going to be like, well, I got to check this guy out for myself. I know you said some positive or whatever, but making people uncomfortable at first requires somebody to go first. I mean, you build connection, do uncomfortable things together.
Right.
You think of the people that build really close relationships a lot of times. You're like, you've been through stuff together.
Right.
Like actually Brent and I have been through stuff together, believe it or not. Like we've been through, I mean, I think I've been more difficult at times than he has for sure, but we've been through stuff together. It's our history that really is like, no one can take that away from us.
Right.
So the teams do the same thing if you get them to, and it takes that, as you mentioned, you being safe in yourself so you can have the foundation to lead people through that it's not nearly as big of a deal. Clients, a lot of times, as I've supervised people over the years that are therapists, they'll tell me that one of their biggest fears is like a couple fighting or a family fighting.
Yeah.
And then I think, well, okay, I can see that because it's so volatile, and then I'll tell them, I'm like, how how many times people in families have stormed out of my office over the last, whatever years. And I'll tell them like, I'll give them stories, like people, this and that, I'm going to do, it's like, okay. And then they come back and then they, it's like, I've had clients before where my admin, they just kind of know that this is going to be loud. And it's like, okay, but that's your own sense of confidence in yourself and security in yourself that lets you go and step into those things and be okay. So what are your thoughts on this going first, Brent? And then this, what I'm talking about here.
It just made me think of, I had a friend, Dan, who started hanging out with me a lot. He came to work, was in my cubicle, and we worked together for a while, and then started kind of hitting it off, became friends, started doing things outside of work. And eventually it got to the point where, man, I just really liked him. I really wanted to spend time with him. And so I just did, and I mean, I'd call him and say, hey, let's go do this. Or I'd say, hey, we'd be at work and I'd say, hey, let's go do this, whatever. And I felt like I was just always.
Was that a bromance?
No, not really. Not exactly.
Yeah, I get it. All
but
right.
Anyway, I just really enjoyed him. And I kind of started, that feeling was like, well, I'm always the one instigating, and it's easy to start down that negative path, right? Well, I always have to do it, and he doesn't really want to spend time with me. But the reality is they're having the same thoughts, right? They're having this, they're probably too busy, or, they don't really want to hang out with me, and so they're struggling with that same thing. So just keep that in mind and not take it personal if it does feel one-sided. I mean, do you enjoy it? Do you guys have fun together? Then there's no reason not to. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of.
It's like, get over yourself. I mean, some people are busier. I mean, for me in my life too, I think, well, I have a daughter who's almost 18, and I'm not married. I have an apartment. What are some activities that in the very first session, let's say, with a couple or a family that you think would be super helpful, that you would challenge them to engage in to build the relationship?
Yeah. So my go-to favorite thing with people is the Gary Chapman, I believe is right.
Oh,
the 5 love languages. And so for me, for one reason, just kind of give you insight, like early, like first year of marriage, I felt like, man, I was like the best husband ever. I mean, I'm just like, I have got this thing nailed. And I'm like breaking my arm, patting myself on the back. And then
that's
all of a
right.
sudden,
You used to wear that gold medal, like the marriage gold medal.
Yeah.
Or like, what are you doing with that thing? I was a little embarrassed for you when you wore that thing. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
so just patting myself on the back, and all of a sudden I start hearing this sound, and I'm like, what? And I realize my beautiful wife is in tears, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm super husband. How could that be? And then I find out, well, it's because you're a jerk. But so what I've been doing was I was speaking my love language. I was telling her I loved her. I was serving my butt off, right? So I'm saying I love her. I'm doing all this serving. And all those things, the words of affirmation are going right in one ear, out the other. The serving was actually to her saying she's not doing a good enough job. So it's just everything I'm doing is actually having the opposite effect. Until I find out, fortunately, we read this book and I found out her love language is physical touch. And so I had to start translating. When I thought to tell her I love her, that I would give her a hug and a kiss. And so as I started doing that, then she started feeling loved. And so for me, that's one of the biggest ones, because I see so many people that doing what I did. You spend all this energy and you're like, it's not having any impact. And then you get frustrated and you just like, forget it. Why bother? And you just completely check out, And so fortunately, we didn't get to that point. But that's what happens a lot of times in relationships is, it's all this work is expended and you don't see a payoff. And so you're like, well, forget it. I'm just not going to work.
That's so physical. Did you rub her feet?
No, she doesn't like that. So, yeah.
You would if you, okay.
Within arm's reach, I'm holding her hand.
She likes that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And then hugs and kisses. First thing in the morning, when we get up, hug and kiss. When I'm leaving for work, hug and kiss. Come back from work,
she loves that.
Kiss.
Yeah.
Before we go to sleep, hug and kiss.
Yeah. So how long were you married before you figured that out?
It was within the first year.
That's
Fortunately,
cool. Okay.
It was fairly quickly.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I don't even remember how we found it, but it was, so that's one reason why it was so impactful for me. That's one reason
huge.
why
Yeah.
that I really,
Yeah.
but I do see a lot of value when people use that.
For sure.
And it's a fairly simple, and simple is not easy. So don't.
Simple. Okay. That's a both and.
Yeah. So it's a simple thing to do, but simple does not equal easy. It takes work.
So simple, the concept is simple.
Yes.
So like there's 5 love languages and
Yes.
all that. And by the way, that book, The 5 Love Languages, is Gary Chapman. There's also a great book as well called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace, written by Gary Chapman and Paul White. And Paul's actually a good friend of mine. That's a great book, though, for workplace teams that I've actually gone through with a number of companies, and they find it extremely helpful.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
it's different.
You probably don't want to hug your coworker.
Yeah, high five or fist bump or whatever, slap on the back.
Yeah, but you can use that. Yeah.
Right. Same concept, and simple yet not easy. You got to plan it intentionally into your life. So as a reminder, that is the first half of Relationship Building Actions with Brent Coppock. Come back and check out the second half of this episode. You'll find it as inspiring as the first. So remember, 20% of transformational change or less is information. Gaining information. You gain information today, but remember that 80% plus is action. What are you going to do with this information? If you want it to stick, take action right away. And if you really want it to sink in even deeper than that, teach it to someone else. Whatever it was today that was so inspiring to you and helpful to you, remember, put it into action, do something with it. Make it your mission to live the life now that you want to be remembered for 10 years after you're gone. You decide your legacy, nobody else. I appreciate you greatly, and I'll see you next time.
This show is part of the ICT Podcast Network. For more information, visit ictpod.net.